College Kickoff 2025 makes a stop in Durham, North Carolina, and the Duke Blue Devils who, hey, look, the days of being ACC doormats, those days are over. I'm Kevin Holden. Sarah Holland is here with us. Sarah's first season in the Triangle, covering the different Triangle teams. Sarah, first of all, welcome. And second, how exciting is it that when you've got three teams in the Triangle, you've got NC State, you've got North Carolina, and you've got Duke. It's Duke that had the best record last year, and they've been the ones that have gotten the most recognition from the polls and that sort of thing leading into this season.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what they were able to do, first of all, defensively, and I think that's why those expectations and hopes are so high for the Blue Devils this year. And then you got Darian Mensah coming in, right? And that has to be so exciting for them to be able to have an offense now that I think that they can get behind a little bit more after watching them struggle offensively last year. So I think that they're going to be more of a well-rounded group to start this season, and I'm really excited to see what they're able to put on the field, especially in those first few weeks.
It's amazing as we're going to look at a little bit of practice video here. Manny Diaz came in, and then that first season that this group was here, 2022, they talked about this a bit during the ACC football kickoff. They came in with a mission to try to change Duke football. Okay, people all over the country have missions to change programs, but this group pulled it off. And it's a pretty amazing thing because, well, let's face it, Duke is known for the building next door to the football building, but it looks like football's got a foothold finally on that campus.
Yeah, I mean, it's a testament to what Manny Diaz and the culture that he's been able to create there, right? I know we're going to, maybe touch on this a little bit later too, but you look at how many recruits and people that they have coming in and not leaving the school as well, right? And that's maybe a testament to what he's built there, but also the kind of school that Duke is. And I think that it's exciting to be able to, in this day and age of college football, where you have the transfer portal so readily available for players that are maybe unhappy, or NIL and how difficult that is to kind of, work your head around. And you have these players that are coming to Duke and wanting to finish out their careers there, whether it be academic wise or athletic wise. And I think that that's really special and a really great culture that Manny Diaz has created.
It's a new standard, and Justin Pickett and Wesley Williams talk about the new standard in Durham at Duke.
Yeah, I'm super proud. I know a lot of our seniors, like this group of seniors and fifth years, will be the last group to kind of who understood the struggle of Duke football and where that program started. And it's super exciting. It really means a lot to us as older guys to see where this program is and where it's going to be after we're gone.
Our standard is a championship, absolutely. And we work every day towards that standard. With everything we do, every rep is championship standard. So with that in mind, you don't have to worry too much about the result. Right now, we just focus on our standard and the process day to day.
9-4 is the bar now. Like, we don't want anything less than that, and we're going to push to excel. And we want to be in that college football playoff, and we want to be in Charlotte for the ACC championship. That's our goal, and we're not wavering from that.
So you're talking about a team that was 9-4, Sarah, last season. They didn't get to Charlotte in that ACC championship game, but they did go to the Gator Bowl, which was great until Ole Miss kind of put it to them in the Gator Bowl. And that's interesting how you can have both optimism and motivation out of that, because they had that great season, but Ole Miss made them realize if they want to take that next step, there's still a little work to do.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's maybe some of the things that they've worked on in this offseason, right? You really need to have both sides of the ball to be able to take that next step and be a 10-win team and maybe push for the college football playoffs and eventually maybe an ACC championship. And I think that Duke has that in them, but it's really going to be, what can Darian Mensah materialize when it comes to playing football actually on the field, being able to connect with his weapons. And I mean, for me, I look at Duke and I always think that they're going to have a great defense, right? That's always to me the strong point of this team. But I'm curious to see, how it all kind of melts together when they hit the field this season.
So Darian Mensah, you mentioned Mensah, comes from Tulane. And I know the conference is different, right? Like, you're not facing the same kind of opponents when you're at Tulane that you will in the ACC. But man, Darian Mensah, one, was incredibly impressive during his time at Tulane, and two, seems to have picked up Manny Diaz, the system, the teammates, everything really, really well from what we've seen in spring game and practices.
Yeah, exactly. And I've watched a little bit of film going back to him at Tulane, and I know that he is a kind of quarterback that, relied on play action from what I saw in his time there. And I'm curious how he's going to gel with the transfers that are coming in, and the receiving corps, because it's really, something that I think has some questions still surrounding that group, but you have some talent coming in. And I really am curious to see, how they're able to connect early on. And if they are going to have to rely a little bit more on the defense, especially at the beginning of the season.
So everybody has had a little something to say about Darian Mensah arriving, and there's a lot of positivity. So I'm going to list the names. You'll hear from Mensah, Chandler Rivers, Justin Pickett, Trey Freeman, Wesley Williams, all of them about the brand new signal caller and a guy that's putting some major hope into things in that Duke offense.
I think just the opportunity to compete in a competitive conference like the ACC under Coach Diaz, the lead head coach, in the offense that we're in, and with the defense that we got, I feel like it's just a bunch of pieces that I think Duke was the perfect fit, when you really break out.
He's an exciting quarterback. He's going to be electric for this offense. He's going to be electric for this team. He brings the same go-getter mentality every day. I got to be better than I was yesterday. That's just how he carries himself. He carries himself like a professional, like a pro. And that's something that you can't do nothing but admire about him.
Normally guys come in and struggle, but he rolled right in, fit right in. He's a great guy. He's an incredible leader. He pushes me. He pushes the offense. He pushes the coaches.
Him being athletic, being able to extend the play, and then him being a great quarterback. We get to practice against him every single day. So that in itself is going to make us better.
Yeah, you want to stay away from the quarterback, stay away from the red jersey. So, don't want to get too close to him. But he's got a rocket arm. He's got great feet. He can run. He's mobile. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do this fall.
All right, lots of fun coming from the rest of the Duke teammates. The defense likes it because, hey, a good quarterback does make their job easier. The other question is, what does it do for Duke's running game? I mean, I know that's weird to cross over when you're talking about a quarterback and receivers, but the more effective they are, the better the running game can be.
Right, yeah, and you had questions last year with Jacquez Moore and, his inability to stay healthy, obviously suffering through that injury, and what is he going to be able to do when he is fully healthy? And that was where I looked at, when I look at this team before the season starts, my focus immediately to what's their weakness, right? And to me, that was the run game. And I think that they're going to need to establish that, especially, anytime you have a new quarterback coming into a program, right? It's going to take some time. It's natural to take some time to gel and to be able to find, chemistry with your receiving core, especially because that receiving core is so new. So you definitely got to look at what are they going to be able to do early on in the run game. And, I think you have some confidence in what Darian Mensah can do as a quarterback. So if it's not clicking immediately, you have a quarterback that's pretty effective, pretty mobile, and, can make up for some of that game on the ground if they do kind of lack that from the running back group early on. But that's definitely an area specifically of the offense that I'm looking at, definitely needing to improve this season.
So on the offensive side, there's hope because there's Darian Mensah. On the defensive side, there's hope because they know what Chandler Rivers is. They know what he brings to the table. And there was somebody at the ACC football kickoff that in the middle of a question said to Chandler Rivers, I think you're a first-round NFL draft pick. I don't know if I've ever heard that from someone on the other side in the middle of a press conference like that, which means there's a lot of, again, hope, optimism, that sort of thing around Chandler Rivers. But there's a guy, unlike Mensah, who's, coming in and picking up a system. Here's a guy who knows the system and can pass it along to other guys on the defensive side.
Yeah, and I think he especially wants to end his career at Duke on a strong suit, right? And you think about, I personally, again, watching some film from last season, I think their defense flows through Chandler Rivers, right? And you look at this guy and what he's able to do, and watching some of the games last year when he has to go up against really great quarterbacks in Cam Ward and what he's able to, hold them to, and some of the best quarterbacks that are going, top high picks in the NFL draft, and how he was able to limit them. I think that's a testament to why Duke's defense was so good. And I'm excited to see, how he builds off of what he was able to do in the previous seasons. And then also going into his, potentially last year at Duke, I think he's going to have some extra juice flowing there, right? He's going to want to, end his career there on a strong note.
Yeah, you get a Chandler Rivers and a Terry Moore together. That secondary is going to be tremendous. Rivers and his coach, Manny Diaz, on the season ahead.
We felt like we got more to accomplish as a team. Personally, I still had to get my degree. I felt like I had more to prove for myself. As a team, we felt like we had more to prove. We had more to go get. And we just didn't like how that ended last year. So, of course, we got to start for more and start for greater.
Well, he's been extremely valuable because he affects winning in so many ways. I think with what we do schematically, I think he's a great fit, either whether he's playing on the outside at corner and his ability to bump and run against some of the bigger receivers there, or come into the slot and shut down slot receivers like he did last year at, in Raleigh. But where he's also really special, he's got a phenomenal knack for being a great blitzer.
Phenomenal knack for a lot of things, and that's how you end up being an all ACC in the preseason, all the other awards that are attached to Chandler Rivers. So again, offense with potential, explosiveness, defense with all ACC preseason picks, people that can do some things. So both of those things are good. And the other thing that they have, Sarah, that's fascinating to me, in this era where, for example, their neighbors down the road in Chapel Hill have 70 new players this year, Duke has a remarkable amount of consistency. Not that there haven't been some transfers. It's the portal era. Everybody's going to have some transfers, but Duke comparatively doesn't have that many.
Yeah, exactly. And I know I touched on it a little bit earlier in the show, but again, that's, when you see that there's not that many players transferring out of your organization, right? I think you got to look to the coaching staff. Why are these players staying? And it ultimately has to be because of that culture that Manny Diaz has created. And I think that's awesome. I played college softball for a couple years. I know how it is to be able to, if you're not happy, you can leave. And it's at the snap of your fingers, right? It's not that hard anymore, especially in today's age. And so I really like that, I'm assuming what's happening in the locker room and behind closed doors that maybe the media doesn't see is that these players are really happy. Even if they're not playing, getting regular playing time, I'm sure the coaching staff is installing some confidence in them where they're saying, like, I'm going to stay here. Even though I'm not seeing the field, for a while here, I'm not getting to play, have regular playing time, regular starting time. I think the coaching staff believes in me, and that's why I want to stay at this program.
All right, we are going to talk a little bit about roster consistency here from this Duke team as they get ready for 2025.
Oh, it's a huge deal. I mean, not only just to keep everybody, but when it's not hard, you don't have to fight to keep everybody. Everybody's bought in, and kind of like contributes to what you were saying. Like another thing, we all bought in. We know what we want. We want a championship. We want to go to the college football playoff. So everybody being bought into that has made it super easy to work. You don't have to wonder if the guy to the left or right of you is all the way bought in. We're all in.
I always say this is not fantasy football. You have to look at not just what the impact of what the player does on the field, but what they do in the locker room. And you got to make sure you bring the right people into your program. So the first question that we ask anytime we're going to take a transfer is, when that guy walks in the building, do the current players say, thank God that guy's here? Because that guy walks in and say, why did they bring him in? In theory, that's going to lead to a problem. It doesn't lead to a problem when the guy first shows up in the offseason. It may lead to a problem in the fourth quarter of a key game.
Okay, so what's fascinating to me about that is Manny Diaz is thinking about the fourth quarter of a big game before the season even starts. It says a lot about, again, the program's progress and the fact that what the portal era has allowed Duke to do and a lot of other schools to do is you lose 3 or 4 people at a certain position, and sometimes it was just, well, we got young guys and we're going to have to plug them in. There's a little bit of pro part to this in that you can go get I call it a free agent, but you can go get someone from another school who's got experience at a position of need. If you're anti-portal, you got to be pro that, right? It's got to help teams like Duke.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, look, I've been in the Triangle area for maybe about 2 weeks now, and I've heard nothing but good things about Manny Diaz and the culture and the team and what he's been able to create at the school, right? When you think of Duke, you might think of basketball, but I think that's slowly starting to form into, hey, we're also a football school here, and I think things are getting pretty exciting for the Blue Devils.
All right, I'm going to take a quick break. Sarah Holland and Kevin Holden here. College Kickoff. We're going to talk a little more about this Duke Blue Devils team and the schedule ahead for them in the regular season. We'll do that right after this. And we're back, College Kickoff, talking Duke Blue Devils, Sarah Holland and Kevin Holden, as we get ready for Duke football, not Duke men's basketball. It's a couple months off, but Duke football in 2025. Sarah, let's look a little bit at this schedule that the team has. It'll start, you always have that week 1 get warm game against Elon, but I want to jump just a little, if we could, to week 2 against Illinois. The reason why I want to talk a little bit about that game is last year's success was predicated just a bit on that win over Northwestern that they had early in the season. They scheduled an opponent who doesn't have a direction in front of their name or some other, portion of a state in front of their name. Northwestern, a Big Ten school, and when Duke beat them, there was a little bit of confidence there. Illinois comes to Durham with Brett Bielema and his guys. Can this happen again? If they beat Illinois, can they get a similar confidence boost?
I mean, I think so, right? It's going to probably be one of their toughest non-conference opponents, and you got them in week 2. But hey, I think it all kind of stems off, that early game against Elon, right? That's a good field game. You should really be leaving that game, with your juices flowing, right? You've got one game underneath your belt. What can you do against Illinois? And I like it in week 2. I think that it kind of sets up for them pretty well. But yeah, I mean, if you can go in and beat that team, I think that there's no reason why that confidence level shouldn't be higher as you move into week 3 and week 4 and so on.
So that's the first couple weeks of the season, and then comes a very interesting game. And it was not going to be an interesting game on the schedule at all until Mr. Darian Mensah decided to make this transfer from Tulane to Duke.
Mm-hmm.
Third game of the season's at Tulane. And I imagine that was scheduled way before Darian Mensah made this decision, but all of a sudden, that's a game that not only is big for Mensah going against his former team, but I think this is a game where he can make his teammates more excited about it. He can get them pumped up for this road game so they don't get tripped up, because again, it's at Tulane. This is that kind of game that can trip you up early in the season, but I can't imagine Darian Mensah will let that happen.
Right, and I mean, you think about his teammates have his back, right? They want to have his back. They're probably just as hyped to go in there and play against, now their quarterback's former school, right? They probably want to prove everyone wrong, and not saying that, in a sense that, Duke is not going to beat them right off the bat, but they want to walk in there and say, we got this guy from your school, and we are excited to have him here as our quarterback. And so I'm sure on the other side of the ball, there's also going to be some of those juices flowing, right? You probably think some of Darian Mensah's old teammates on defense probably want to get that chance to maybe give him a couple hits, maybe an interception here or there. And they probably, want to show him like, hey, why'd you leave us? And stuff like that. So I think it's going to be really exciting to look at that game. That's week 3. It's away. I think that's going to be a really exciting game, especially for Darian Mensah. And, I think that, like you said, he's going to get his teammates kind of flowing, and it's going to be a really fun game for them all.
Now, the early schedule has it as a primetime game. I can't imagine that'll change because it's going to be a big deal. Now, Mensah, in addition to being a professional quarterback, is a professional soundbite because he talks about Tulane, and he doesn't give a whole lot here. Listen to this.
Just like any other game, I'm going to try not to make it bigger than what it is. Football's football at the end of the day. Tulane's a great program. They got great talent, so we'll make sure we're prepared for that matchup week 3.
He doesn't want to make it bigger than it is.
No.
You believe that or no?
That is such a typical, athlete talk. I think the competitor in him is probably just saying that right now so that nothing gets blown out of proportion. But then I know as soon as they get on the bus or plane and travel there, it's going to be go time for him. And he's probably looking for revenge.
So, and in case that doesn't do enough for you from an adrenaline standpoint in the early part of the schedule, then comes NC State the week after, and that's in Durham. So you're talking about a rivalry, a geographic rivalry game, and one that I think is the biggest. Not only is it, from a conference standpoint, the opener, and that's important too, but it's an enormous test because NC State is, in my mind, the angry hornet right now. They were 6-7 last year.
Yeah.
And as much as they want to say they're calm about that, 6-7 reverberates in the brain. And this is the kind of game where NC State, where Dave Doran and his guys are going to be like, we're going to go in there and take care of business. This is going to be a tough one.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of pressure on NC State's side, right? Because you have Dave Doran, a coach that's been there for so long, who had an off season last year. And then also, too, you got to think about down the road what Bill Belichick's going to be able to do at UNC. So I think NC State's going to have a lot of pressure on them. But it's a game I'm excited to watch. I think Duke will, be able to handle this one. But you just don't know what you got in terms of with NC State and their defense, right? I think Darian Mensah is going to be an amazing quarterback right off the bat. And so I could see him giving some trouble to NC State's defense right off the bat in that game.
Then after that, it's 2 road games and a reminder of the new look of college football. The Atlantic Coast Conference includes the University of California.
It's no longer the Atlantic.
Yes, nothing Atlantic about. Some of the schools are Atlantic, kind of close to the Atlantic, but the back-to-back road games that they have are at Syracuse again, weird little blip on the schedule where you can't just go in and expect a win. They were close to a ranked team last year. And then Cal, where you're flying 5 hours across the country to play a game. So road games, tough enough. These are two especially difficult road games for different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, the cross-country trip's always going to take a little bit out of you, and now it's something that you have to get used to, right? So I don't think there's going to be any excuses. Like, you look at NFL teams, they do it all the time. Obviously, these are college kids. But I think that the coaching staff has probably been able to, work with them a little bit. And I mean, you grow up playing, maybe a little bit of travel ball, high school ball, and maybe they, get to travel for a little bit of that. But yeah, I mean, it's not easy, right? You also think about these are athletes at the end, or they're students at the end of the day, and student athlete, and they've got homework, they've got stuff to kind of figure out on the plane. And so football is not their entire lives, but definitely going to Cal and then having to come back and do something like Syracuse, it's not going to be easy.
I'm exhausted, and we've reached October 4th in the schedule. This is crazy. After October 4th, there is a bye week. There's a home game against Georgia Tech. There's another bye week.
Yeah.
That's tremendous. The fact that they get those two back-to-back, if there's any early injuries, that'll help a ton. But I want to skip forward a little bit because it's what's coming up after that that's the biggest issue after that 3-week stretch. Off versus Georgia Tech, off, and then the two words that'll strike fear in the heart of anybody, and I don't care what conference or what situation, at Clemson.
Yeah.
And look, Clemson was the overwhelming favorite at the ACC football kickoff to repeat as conference champions, to make the college playoff again. I mean, is it oversimplifying to say it's make or break that game?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, looking at this from an outside standpoint, I don't expect Duke to walk in there and to beat Clemson, but so I don't know if make or break would be, the right term, but also too, I don't think that Duke is a team that is just going to settle for 9 wins and a bowl game each year, right? Like, they might have some of those higher expectations. And I think that being an underdog is always better sometimes because you got nothing to lose, right? You can walk in there and try your hardest. You know that, everyone's no one's expecting you to win, maybe. Who knows? At this point, we could be talking about this when it gets to that week and maybe the conversation and narrative has changed a little bit. But I'm excited to see what they're able to do. I don't necessarily know if I would call it a make or break right off, talking way before the season's even started. But I'm hoping that Duke is, especially with more of a well-rounded offense, can maybe give Clemson a little bit more trouble than they've been able to in the past.
And then, then the game after that is at UConn, which is basically a version of Duke up in the Northeast, someone that's exceeded expectations and hopes to continue to do the same. It's a nice break, but not, that one's not going to make or break anything there. And then the season ends with a home game against Virginia, at UNC, and at home against Wake Forest. And the question I want to ask you about the UNC game is this. Say you had a choice. You were going to face Bill Belichick's Tar Heels, and you had a choice between facing him in the first couple of games or the last couple of games of his first season as head coach. What would you choose?
First. It's easy.
Right?
I think that's an easy answer for me because I'm thinking that UNC will look better at the end of the season than they do at the beginning of the season. And maybe that to some that's obvious, maybe you have to work out through a couple of little kinks. But yeah, if I was Duke, I would have rather caught UNC earlier on in the season when maybe, hey, like you mentioned earlier in the show, you got 70 new people coming in. You have no idea what UNC is going to look like under Belichick. And you don't want to give Belichick more time to, figure out what his team's capable of. So that's going to be a really fun game in this area, but definitely would have wanted to grab them in the first half of the schedule.
Right. I agree with that. The game 11 of their season against UNC, they're going to have a little more figured out, I think, at that point. And then it wraps up with Wake, and then if Duke gets their way, who knows, Charlotte or a bowl game or that sort of thing. So this is a little bit of a wrap of how these guys have approached the season. We've talked X's and O's and all this other stuff. But I had one more thing I wanted to share super quick. Manny Diaz mentioned, everybody in the early part before the season starts gets the question, what do you think about your team this year? What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses? Manny Diaz came up with something super funny that I wanted to pass along that shows you kind of negates a little bit of what we're doing, but we talk a lot. And what he realizes is all the work that you've done leading into football practices doesn't necessarily work until you hit the practice field.
This is the strongest team we've had at Duke in the last 4 years. This is the fastest team we've had at Duke in the last 4 years since our strength coach, David Feely, has been around. And really with those two things being together, that if we get challenged into a arm wrestling competition, we should expect to come on top. And if anybody wants to run relay races against us, we'd feel confident that we can win relay races. The issue is we have a football season coming up.
So if it's arm wrestling, Duke's in a national championship. I just thought that was great that a coach had a grounded approach, and he realized that they spent a lot of time being strong and fast, but, you got to play football to play football.
Exactly.
It's kind of an important thing. Sarah Holland, much appreciated. Great insights. We've been talking Duke football as the Blue Devils get ready for the season. Throughout the season, we'll be here with analysis on all 12 of these games, and if Duke has their way, we'll be talking about them going into some great bowl game December into January. But thanks for joining us for College Kickoff, Duke Blue Devils edition. Sarah Holland and Kevin Holden.